Hey guys, Jim here. Welcome back once again. Today we're going to be taking a look at another rising star, a brand new up-and-coming maker that's highly unlikely that any of you have had the chance to interact with him or maybe even ever have heard of him. His name is Jason Luma, and he owns Lumablades, and this is the Lumablades Raven. Now I'm really excited to get the chance to bring this knife out, not only because it's super badass, and also because his books are open and there's very, very little weight whatsoever, but also because of the price point that he's at this current time. Now again, when I talk about availability, wait times, and prices, you have to judge it by the upload date of the video. So please look at the upload date. If you're looking at this video 2 years later, no, the prices do not apply and the wait list times do not apply. But right now, at the beginning of April in 2017, these things are all valid. Let's talk about the knife for a second, then we'll talk about the maker and all the other good stuff that goes with it. First off, we are looking at just a tick under a 4-inch blade made of S35VN, great premium steel. 5-inch titanium 6AL4V handle, so it's just a touch under 9 inches in overall length. You've got a cryo-treated S35VN blade with a belt satin finish and a nice hand-rub satin on the flats and ricasso. It's just about 188 thousandths thick, so it's got a good amount of thickness to that blade stock. Not a thin, tiny, wimpy blade in any way, shape, or form. It's running on ceramic bearings. It's got a ceramic detent. The handles are done in 6AL4V titanium, as are the clip back spacers and all of the corresponding hardware. The lock bar is specially heat-treated and, heat hardened, I guess is probably the best way to put it, and then carbonized. So you're going to get absolutely no lock stick whatsoever. Nice way of doing things. Now I mentioned how great his prices are, because right now he is currently in his paying my dues stage. That means I'm a new maker, I don't have a huge following of fans, and people are taking a chance when they're ordering from me because they don't know my quality. It's not out there in front of everybody for years and years. So his current price for this knife is $550, which is stupid cheap. Stupid cheap. Think about it this way. A comparable established maker's knife would be $800 to $850 built like this. So I would expect that to be his prices within the next year, because once this video is out there and enough people have seen my reaction to it, order their own knife, and then spread the word that, yeah, this is a kick-ass knife by a kick-ass dude, his reputation will then fall in line where it is much more easy to trust that maker when ordering from him. It is no longer a gamble. He's no longer a risk. So he can start charging the prices that would be normal for an established maker, which would put it $850 for the knife as you see it here. Now, in the packaging, you will get a certificate of authenticity, and that will include your model name, and will also include your Rockwell hardness, which this particular blade is at a Rockwell of 60, and then his signature there at the bottom. He pretty much stands behind his blades for a lifetime, so anything that ever goes wrong with it, he's going to make sure you get taken care of. That's pretty great to hear. Now, let's talk about Jason and the knife itself. Very, very well done. Knife itself, fantastic, really well made. I'm going to call out the issues first so that we can just get them done and out of the way. This is something that I've already previously discussed with Jason, so he's working on that, and I've seen the knife that he built directly after this. The issue was addressed, so I don't see it being an issue going forward, but it is something that, because it's here and you can see it with your own two eyes in HD, I do have to point out. There is an inconsistency in his grinds here that you can see, and it's not really so much in the grinds, it's the fact that he went into a higher grit and almost into a polish at the end there without making sure all of his earlier grit grinds were completely even. So there's a couple little valleys, a couple little peaks in there that should have been addressed before stepping up into the next grit. But as I mentioned, I have addressed that with him, and that, as far as I've seen, has been, he's working on correcting that. So, you know, don't really hold his feet to the fire on that, but it is something that I do have to call out. But aside from that, the grinds, if you take a look at his primary bevel here, it's nice and even. We take a look at the symmetry. He's doing really good left hand to right hand. He's got great symmetry both on his primary and on his top swedge. I like the fact that he did add the top swedge there. It does add quite a bit of character. Swedges are a pain in the ass, especially if when you're making the first blade, you haven't decided yet if you want to do a swedge, and you do it as an afterthought. You do it after you grind the blade. Certainly no fun, and it's a big, big risk of completely ruining your blade. But I do love the extra aggression that it gives this particular design. Let's take a close-up look at the handwork that he's done on the flats. Nice clean satin there. He is using a sharpening choil for those of you that make that a big deal. You'll notice that his final edge is nice and even all the way from tip to choil. Look at it back here. Now I have used this knife to cut a little bit. You can see right there. I have carried it for a few days. I wanted to give it the most fair and equitable review that I could. I needed to use it, and I needed to carry it in order to do that. It's something that I'm doing more and more and more in the future. I'm not just grabbing a knife as soon as it arrives and sitting down and photographing and videoing it. I really want to spend a few days with it in use to see if it's really all that great. Now, he came up with the name Raven because he liked the way that the blade canted away from the frame, kind of gave it a raven's claw look, so he kind of went with that name. That's where it got the name. You'll notice the handles are very, very wide, very thick and very beefy, and he has done a fantastic job on the milling of the pattern. I call this the Cubert pattern. He is offering a number of different patterns, but when I ordered this one, I specifically asked for the Cubert pattern because I dig it. Very, very cool. He's done a nice bronze anode that will bring up different highlights as you move it in the light. And when it's got a fresh coat of Windex on it, which is what you spray onto your anodized titanium or your Timascus or Mokutai to bring the color back vivid once it starts to dull, it has a little purple hue to it, so I really love the way that he's done that. Great detail work through there. Gives you a very large lanyard opening. I've already thrown a lanyard on this because I am carrying it. Here is an anodized blue backspacer and clip that was done by my request. He has been usually doing tone on tone, and I really wanted to break it up, and I think blue looks really good against bronze if it's done right, and he hit a really good color tone. He's got a gear style backspacer, very deep on the gear pattern. Full custom, very long clip. Great retention, by the way. Nice and strong without being too strong where you can't get it into your pocket. You'll notice that he has color matched the hardware to the clip and color matched the hardware to the frame so that it blends into the specific areas that it's sunken into. He's got a rather interesting lock bar relief there. I've never seen anybody do a stepped relief. So you have a deeper relief here than you have here, so you have two different reliefs. Really cool how he's done that. And it's very functional, so it's not like it's hindering the performance at all. This is labeled Luma USA. This is not going to happen anymore. It really does make it look like a production knife like that. And I was just getting ready to ask him about that, and he says, before you ask, that is not going forward. That's not going to be on my future knives. That's just the way I marked the first few. So if you see one in the future, and it says Luma USA in giant letters on the lock bar, you'll know it's one of his very first knives. Everything here is very well contoured. There are no sharp edges. This is great because even established makers still have a hard time remembering that we disengage our lock all day long, maybe hundreds or thousands of times a day, if we're sitting there flipping and playing with our knife. No harsh edges for your thumb whatsoever. Nice lock geometry. Let's bring this out to full lock. See where it locks up. Bingo, bango. Very early lockup. Now mine has a jimped flipper tab that was done by my request, but he likes having the jimping on there so much that that will go on all of his flippers going forward. So you guys can thank me later for that. And the reason why I like it, it allows you to still use a pretty small flipper tab, still have it nicely rounded where you don't have a sharp edge that you have to engage, so it can be rounded, but you get traction. You see that? You can just barely touch it, just barely glide your finger across it, and it's going to grab. As far as the action goes, it's just what you would expect from ceramic bearings and a ceramic detent. Very smooth, very fast. Even though you have a very large blade here, it rips out of there. And you can choose to light switch like I tend to do, or you can push button it, put a little bit of pressure right there, and it makes it go even faster. Jason himself prefers the light switch, so that's how he builds it. He builds it with a strong detent because that's what he prefers. If you are you have tender little flower hands and you don't want a hard detent, let him know and he'll tune it back a little bit and make it just a little bit lighter, because again, this is a custom knife that you're buying. This is not an off-the-shelf parts bin production knife. And that's why people spend, you know, what they spend to get into custom knives, so that you can have things like that done. You know, I wanted to have the blue on the bronze. Boom, it's a custom knife. I can have that done. I wanted the jimped flipper tab. Boom, I can have that done. That is the beauty of custom knives. Let's give you a side-by-side size comparison to some favorites here. Two knives that you guys have seen on my channel for, 4 years now for both of these. There is Big Red. We'll put them butt to butt as all things should be. And we'll bring out the Rockstead Shin. So I really want to show you guys, in comparison to a standard large-sized EDC and an EDC, a true EDC size knife like the Rockstead. The Rockstead's a 3.5. This is 3 3/4 inch blade. So it gives you an idea of just how large this knife is. However, this is slimmer than the Bodega. It is about the same thickness in the handle as the Rockstead Shin. So what you've got here is a big, bold knife with a large, purpose-built for cutting and hacking up shit blade that's still slim enough and lightweight enough that it can be considered an EDC knife. Is it as small as the Rockstead? No, but it's not meant to be that compact. It is just about the same size as the Bodega, but slimmer. If I were to draw the most direct comparison design-wise, when I first saw this knife, it popped in my head. I'm like, wow, that reminds me a lot of a Jim Burke, in specific the Dead Man Walking, the DMW. And there is obviously the review of mine here on my channel here. It reminds me of the DMW in the way the frame is made and the whole shape of the knife. Again, there's nothing that's identical. This certainly is its own design, but it does give me that reminder. I love the forward finger relief right here, and right where the flipper tab drops in. Again, everything is perfectly smooth in there, and my finger perfectly fits in there. I love when my finger fits perfectly. Don't you, ladies? I mean, guys, don't you love that? Yeah. So, fits perfectly. Again, for your reference, I wear a size large glove, and this is how much it fits into my hand. A little bit hanging out on the outside. Very good, full grip. It's just square enough on the edges that it's not going to twist while you're cutting, but it is just rounded off enough to be comfortable and not have any hot spots. You might be concerned about that long clip, but hey, guess what? It goes the entire width of your hand, so it creates no actual hot spot. It feels like I'm just holding onto the side of the knife. So it's, honestly, it's perfect. And you know what? Looks pretty good when it's hanging outside the pocket of your jeans. Very clean, slick, well done all the way around. You know, the only critique I really had was on the grinds of the blade. being just a little bit uneven in the final finish, not in the grind itself. The grind is great, just in the final finish. And the billboard that was on the lock bar, that no longer exists, so that's a gripe that I can take off my list. And he has already improved his blade finishing, as I've seen on his Instagram, which I will put in the description down below so you can follow him there. So, you know, the two tiny little issues that I had, he immediately took care of, and he took the advice that I gave him, and he's running with it. As you see, the blade is perfectly centered. You'll notice the diamond of the blade is just about perfect. Let's give you a view of just that. I don't know if I can do it and get the right amount of light on it. I have to angle it just a little bit, which unfortunately changes the perspective. But it is damn near perfect, which means he's getting a good symmetrical grind from left to right. It's got a great edge, very, very sharp. As I mentioned, I've cut a few things with it. I've cut down some cardboard, chopped some wire, chopped down some paracord, and something else that I can't remember that I was doing push cuts, and the blade did wonderfully. So as far as performance goes, it's great. The jimping is effective without being overly sharp. That's a big plus in my book. You guys know that. I think if I were to maybe add one more thing, I kind of like this style of blade, the way that it's shaped, for chopping and for slicing. I'd love to be able to stick my finger up here, so an actual finger choil might be something to consider in the future, and you guys may disagree with that, and that's fine, but once you get one in your hand, see how you feel about it. As it stands, I look at this as a really great tactical style flipper. I feel like I have perfect control over this knife in any handhold that I have this in. Yeah, I mean, it just feels, this recess here is just done perfectly. Now, if I had, and I don't have skinny fingers, but if I had super giant fat fingers, that may be a little restrictive, but for me, no issue whatsoever. So performance overall, the flipping action, the smoothness, fantastic, great lockup. No bad lock characteristics. He's got good geometry going on. He has heat hardened it and carbonized it, so there's no lock stick. Perfect amount of tension on the lock bar. It's not too hard. It's not dragging with additional friction of the detent onto the blade, so you're getting a nice smooth action. He's using all the right materials. Ceramic internals, titanium everywhere. S35VN, great steel. I work with it myself. It's just one of those steels that does everything you need it to do. It takes a great finish. It takes a very, very, very fine, sharp edge. It's not difficult to maintain that edge as a customer. Strop it very easily. It resharpens very easily. The edge retention is good. The corrosion resistance is great. So all around, great choices in materials, great execution in what I feel is a beautiful design. And in my opinion, it's a winner. He's self-taught in all aspects. Think about this. Jason is a carpenter and cabinet maker by trade, and until a year and a half ago, he had never even worked with any metals. But he's restored several classic cars and motorcycles, and he's a gun enthusiast, so something like this really isn't too far out of the box for him when you really get down to it. Now, he went to a motorcycle show about a year and a half ago, and he met a custom knife maker there, chatted him up for a bit, and he decided, fuck it, I'm going to give this a go and see if I can do it. I'm really interested in doing this. After only 4 months of trial and error making of fixed blades, he says, all right, it's time to make that step up into folders. And by the way, that's a ballsy move. After only 4 months of making fixed blades, that's where I'm at. I've been making fixed blades for about 4 months myself. I am not even ready to handle the numerous things that come with making that fucker fold. So definitely big balls on him doing that. So fast forward less than a year later, and you've got what we see before us right here. His first fully functional frame lock flipper that is made to be repeatable. Not, okay, I made a frame lock, well now I got to make it different for the next one and things are going to change for that one. This is his first truly successful model. He's taught himself how to work with CAD. He's taught himself CNC. All of the processes in making this knife were all done by him, and get this, in the shop that he built in the basement of his house. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? Beautiful millwork. So obviously he has this CAD and CNC thing down very, very well. Sculpted that clip wonderfully. Great contouring on everything. All of his knives are hand ground, hand fitted, all of the detail work done by hand. So you've got somebody that's really exhibiting a great degree of knife making talent as well as machining talent on the CNC end of it. Realize guys go to school to learn CNC machining and programming and just using the fucking control panel, and he's completely self-taught. That's amazing to me. I certainly couldn't do that shit. I look at a CNC and you can literally hear the bursting of fart bubbles in my brain as I'm trying to figure out what all that crap means. Something I'm never going to be able to do. So I give him major credit for learning the craft of knife making as well as the craft of CNC machining and CAD programming. That's a lot to squeeze into about a year and a half. That's nuts. So down below, you're going to see all the contact info where you can order your own knife from Jason, where you can contact him and talk to him for a little bit, see where your head's at, see where his head is at, and also his Instagram and Facebook and all that kind of good stuff where you can watch the work that he's doing. Maybe this particular model doesn't appeal to you. I could see that. I like a bigger knife sometimes, and this certainly fits my style. But one day, you're going to be scrolling through his feed and he's going to pop out something crazy and you'll know how to get a hold of him. Just one more thing, and this is just more of a note to Jason. I love the fact that the blades are sterile. There are no markings on the blades. I love that. But since he's going to be getting rid of this here, a maker's mark, I mean, you've got to brand yourself. Absolutely have to brand yourself. But how do you do it in a way that it's not a fucking billboard and it doesn't detract away from the beauty of the knife? And that really is tricky sometimes. Some guys do it on their pocket clips. I'm not a big fan of that. Some guys put it down on their bevel. And if it's done right and it's a nice enough logo, it doesn't look too bad. But if you don't want to do it on your blade, I would at the very least be doing it on the inside of the backspacer where it's visible, or the inside of the frame, or a nice font style around the backside pivot. Something. You need to have your name on this knife, because as wonderfully designed as it is, and as popular as I believe this knife is going to be, when people come across pictures, and maybe uncredited pictures somewhere in the vast regions of the internet, you want people to know that it's you. And I think this is definitely a knife that you should be proud of making. It's been fantastic in everything that I've put it through. It's been great to carry, and I think it's a very handsome look. Check out the other work that he's done. He just did one that was all copper on the presentation side. I may not be a copper fan, but I love copper when it's brand new. And that is a sexy ass knife. Go check it out. With that, guys, I'm out of here. Thank you for watching. As always, I've got a few more videos on the way, so don't cry, don't pout. There is more content coming out. Ha! You see that? I made it rhyme. Yeah, don't expect that in the future. See you guys on the next video.